This is Intelligence Director Alexei Volkov, Terran Federal Archives. What I am about to share was discovered in an alien database 40 years after humanity achieved first contact. It concerns events that occurred on Earth in 1989. Events that no human witnessed, no government recorded, and no history book has ever mentioned. 1 million alien soldiers invaded our planet. Not one of them left alive. And until we found the Drethnar archives, we never knew it happened. This is Case File 108. This is the story of the silent invasion. The Drethnar Imperium was, by galactic standards, a minor power. They controlled approximately 80 systems in the outer spiral arm, far from the major civilizations. They were not diplomatically significant. They were not economically important. But they were feared. The Drethnar had perfected ground warfare. While other species relied on orbital bombardment or automated drones, the Drethnar conquered worlds the old-fashioned way. They landed soldiers. They fought in trenches and forests and cities. They believed that true conquest required boots on the ground, blood in the soil. For 4,000 years, they had never lost a ground campaign. 300 worlds had fallen to their infantry legions. Their soldiers were genetically enhanced, cybernetically augmented, equipped with the most advanced personal weapons in their sector of the galaxy. They were professional conquerors. In 2089 by their calendar, which corresponds to 1989 in Earth years, their long-range probes detected a habitable world in an unexplored system. Class 7 planet, oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, liquid water, carbon-based life, and no detectable spacefaring civilization. To the Drethnar, it was perfect. A garden world, ripe for conquest, defended only by primitive natives who had not yet discovered radio technology. The Imperium assembled an invasion force of 1 million soldiers, the largest deployment in their history, not because they expected resistance, but because they wanted to be thorough, systematic. They planned to cleanse the entire planet in a single campaign. The fleet arrived in Earth orbit on what we would call October 3rd, 1989. They conducted surveillance for 72 hours. They mapped our cities. They analyzed our military technology. They studied our population distribution. They saw nations armed with nuclear weapons and fought among themselves. They saw aircraft that could not leave atmosphere. They saw ground vehicles powered by internal combustion. By their standards, we were not simply primitive. We were laughably helpless. The invasion began on October 6th. 1 million soldiers deployed across 6 continents in simultaneous drops. They targeted population centers, military installations, and resource-rich regions. Standard Drethnar doctrine called for immediate communication dominance. Jam all enemy transmissions, establish orbital overwatch, broadcast surrender demands. They did all of this flawlessly. Then they landed. The first reports from ground forces were routine, landing zones secured. No significant resistance. Native military forces were confused, disorganized, unable to coordinate response. Exactly as expected. The second wave of reports, 6 hours later, noted unexpected casualties, small unit ambushes, equipment malfunctions in certain environments, local fauna more aggressive than anticipated. The Drethnar commanders were not concerned. Every invasion had complications. Their soldiers were professionals. They would adapt. The third wave of reports came at the 24-hour mark. Casualties had accelerated dramatically. Multiple units had gone dark. Strange reports from survivors, reports of attacks that made no tactical sense. By the 48-hour mark, The invasion command structure was in disarray. Regional commanders had lost contact with over 60% of ground forces. Distress signals were coming from every continent. Requests for orbital support were constant and increasingly desperate. At the 72-hour mark, all transmissions from Earth's surface ceased. 1 million soldiers. Silent. The Drethnar fleet waited in orbit for 6 days. They sent reconnaissance drones. The drones did not return. They attempted to establish new landing zones. The dropships vanished without a trace. Finally, the fleet admiral made a decision that would define Drethnar policy for centuries. He ordered a full retreat. The Imperium returned 6 months later with a recovery fleet. They had to know what happened. They had to understand how a pre-spaceflight civilization had destroyed the finest military force in their history. What they found broke them. The equipment was scattered across the planet. Armor, weapons, vehicles, communication devices, all of it abandoned. Much of it damaged in ways that made no sense. The bodies were harder to find. Most had been consumed. The recovery teams found bones, picked clean by creatures they could not identify. They found remains scattered by scavengers, buried by Earth, dissolved by chemicals. Earth had not simply killed the Drethnar soldiers, Earth had eaten them. The recovery fleet spent 3 weeks gathering data. They reconstructed timelines from damaged recording devices. They analyzed the remains. They studied the planet. What they discovered terrified them. The Drethnar had landed in dense forests where visibility dropped to meters. Their advanced sensors were useless against creatures that had evolved to hunt in such environments. Their communication equipment failed in humid conditions it was never designed for. They had deployed in deserts where temperatures exceeded anything their homeworld experienced. Their cooling systems failed. Their water supplies proved insufficient. They died of dehydration while surrounded by armed natives who knew every water source within 100 kilometers. They had marched through jungles filled with parasites that burrowed through their environmental suits. Diseases their immune systems had never encountered. Venomous creatures in every tree, every stream, every shadow. And everywhere, there were humans. The recovered footage showed what happened. Fragmented recordings from helmet cameras and damaged data cores. Drethnar soldiers moving through a forest in textbook formation, suddenly dropping as primitive projectile weapons fired from positions they never detected. A platoon in the Amazon, overwhelmed by insects carrying diseases that killed within hours. A company in Siberia, freezing to death as their equipment failed in temperatures that humans simply dressed warmer for. An entire battalion in the African savannah, hunted by human warriors who appeared from the grass, struck without warning, and vanished before the Drethnar could return fire. But the footage that disturbed the Drethnar commanders most came from a unit deployed in Southeast Asia. The recording showed a squad of elite soldiers, the best the Imperium had, moving through dense jungle. They were cautious, professional, aware that something was hunting them. Then the traps began. Primitive traps. Sharpened sticks and hidden pits and tripwires connected to falling logs. Technology that predated the Drethnar civilization by millennia. And it worked. One by one, the elite soldiers fell. Not to advanced weapons, not to coordinated military response, but to traps that humans had been using to catch animals since the Stone Age. The last soldier in the recording was not killed by a trap. He was found by the humans who had set them. The recording shows 3 individuals. Small by Drethnar standards, wearing simple clothing, carrying weapons made of wood and metal. They did not use those weapons. They used their hands. The Drethnar soldier was larger, stronger, better equipped. He had been engineered for combat. It did not matter. The humans moved with a coordination that suggested generations of practice. They struck at joints, at weak points in the armor, at locations they should not have known were vulnerable. The fight lasted 11 seconds. The elite Drethnar warrior, product of 4,000 years of military evolution, was beaten to death by 3 humans with no technological advantages whatsoever. And the look in their eyes as they did it. The Drethnar analysts wrote one word in their report: predators. The Drethnar Imperium classified Earth as a forbidden world, the highest restriction in their system. Ground invasion was permanently prohibited. Any ship that entered the Sol system was ordered to maintain orbital distance and avoid all contact with the surface. The reasoning in their archives was simple. Earth was not a garden world defended by primitives. Earth was a death world inhabited by apex predators. Everything on the planet was designed to kill. The bacteria, the insects, the animals, the plants, the weather, the terrain, and most of all, the humans. The Drethnar had believed that their genetic enhancements made them superior warriors. They were wrong. Their enhancements were a pale imitation of what Earth had produced naturally. Humans were persistence predators who had hunted animals to extinction using nothing but patience and sharpened rocks. Humans had immune systems that could adapt to diseases in days. Humans could survive temperature ranges that would kill most species. Humans could eat nearly anything organic and extract nutrition from it. And humans had spent their entire evolutionary history killing each other. The Drethnar soldiers were professional warriors. They had trained for combat. They had studied tactics. Humans were born warriors. Violence was written into our DNA. We had been perfecting the art of killing since before we could write. The Drethnar never stood a chance. When humanity achieved first contact in 2112, we discovered the Drethnar archives. We learned, for the first time, that we had been invaded, that 1 million soldiers had come to conquer our world, and that our planet had destroyed them without most of humanity ever knowing it happened. The question that has haunted xenohistorians since is simple. What exactly happened during those 72 hours? The Drethnar records show the broad strokes: equipment failure, environmental hazards, coordinated resistance from native populations. But the details are missing. We do not know which human governments knew about the invasion, if any. We do not know how the resistance was organized. We do not know who planned the ambushes, who set the traps, who coordinated the response across 6 continents. Some historians believe it was entirely organic, that humans simply did what humans have always done when invaded, fought back with whatever tools were available. Others believe there must have been coordination, that someone, somewhere, recognized the threat and mobilized a response. We will probably never know. 1989 was before comprehensive digital records. Whatever documentation existed has been lost, destroyed, or classified beyond our access. All we know for certain is the result. 1 million soldiers landed on Earth. 0 returned. And humanity did not even notice. The Drethnar Imperium eventually fell. Internal conflicts, economic collapse, the usual fate of aggressive powers that overextend. They are a minor species now, scattered across a handful of worlds, their glory days a distant memory. But they remember Earth. Their children are taught about the silent invasion. They are shown the footage. They are told the lesson that the Imperium learned too late. There are worlds that cannot be conquered. There are species that should not be challenged. And there is a blue planet in an unremarkable system that ate 1 million soldiers and was still hungry for more. When the Drethnar met humanity officially at a diplomatic conference 3 centuries after the invasion, their ambassador did something unexpected. He apologized, not for the invasion. By their culture, that was simply war. No apology needed. He apologized for underestimating us. "We thought you were prey," he said. "We did not understand. Your planet is not your home. It is your training ground. Every day of your existence, you fight to survive. Your air is poison to us. Your water is death. Your animals are nightmares. Your diseases are weapons. And you are the most dangerous thing on a world full of dangers. We sent 1 million soldiers to conquer you. Your planet killed them. Your people killed them. Your very existence killed them. We called Earth a death world. We were wrong. Death worlds can be survived. Earth is something else. Earth is a forge. And you are what it has forged. We will never come to your world again. Not because we fear your weapons, but because we know now that your weapons are the least dangerous thing about you. We fear what you are, and we are right to fear." This is Intelligence Director Alexei Volkov, signing off. Case File 108 is now closed. In 1989,